Have you ever noticed how two people can walk into the same room, attend the same party, or move to the same city, and come away with two completely different versions of reality? One person describes a den of thieves and cold shoulders, while the other describes a sanctuary of warmth and hidden gems. Why is it that some people seem to be magnets for conflict and betrayal, while others constantly stumble into luck and kindness? Is the world truly a chaotic lottery, or are we perhaps the silent architects of the very walls that close in on us? Today, we are going to explore a psychological phenomenon that governs every interaction you have, from the way you talk to your spouse to the way you eye a stranger on the subway. This is not about magic or manifestation in the mystical sense. It is about the cold, hard mechanics of the human mind and a concept known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. To understand this, let us look at the story of a man named Julian. Julian was a brilliant architect, a man of sharp angles and even sharper judgments. He lived his life by a strict set of rules, believing that the world was a competitive dog-eat-dog landscape where survival meant striking first. To Julian, every smile was a mask for a hidden agenda, and every favor was a debt waiting to be collected. After a series of failed business ventures and a bitter divorce in a crowded metropolis, Julian decided that the problem wasn't him, it was the city. He believed the soil of his home was poisoned by greed. He packed his belongings into a sleek, charcoal gray SUV and drove toward the coast, seeking a small, isolated town called Oakhaven. He had heard it was a place of peace, but in his heart, he was already bracing for the inevitable disappointment. As Julian drove through the winding mountain passes, the air grew thinner and the trees taller. He pulled into a dusty petrol station at the edge of the town limits. An old man with skin like crumpled parchment was leaning against a rusted pump, humming a tune that seemed older than the mountains themselves. Julian stepped out of his car, his movements stiff and defensive. He didn't offer a greeting. He simply asked the old man if the people in Oakhaven were as judgmental and small-minded as he had heard. The old man stopped humming and looked Julian in the eye. He didn't take offense. Instead, he asked Julian what the people were like in the city he had just left. Julian spat out his words, describing them as vultures and liars who would sell their own mothers for a promotion. The old man nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the vast, indifferent sky. He told Julian that, unfortunately, he would find the exact same people here in Oakhaven. Julian grunted, fueled by a dark sense of vindication, and drove off into the heart of the village, convinced he was right. A few hours later, a second car pulled up to that same rusted pump. This car was an old, battered station wagon, its roof piled high with mismatched suitcases and a bicycle tied with fraying rope. Out stepped a woman named Elena. She was a teacher who had lost her job during a school closure, yet she moved with a lightness that suggested she was carrying nothing at all. She saw the old man and offered a genuine, weary smile. She told him she was looking for a fresh start and asked if Oakhaven was the kind of place where a person could build a life. The old man, repeating his ritual, asked Elena what the people were like in the town she had left behind. Elena's eyes softened with a hint of sadness. She spoke of her neighbors who had shared their garden harvests when she was struggling, and the students who had written her letters of thanks. She said they were beautiful, resilient souls who did their best despite their hardships. The old man smiled back at her, a warmth spreading across his face. He told her that she was in luck, because she would find those very same people here in Oakhaven. What the old man understood, and what Julian was about to suffer through, is the psychological filter of the reticular activating system. This is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that acts as a gatekeeper. It filters out the billions of bits of data hitting our senses every second and only lets in what it deems important. And how does it decide what is important? It looks at what you focus on. If you tell your brain that everyone is out to get you, your brain will highlight every furrowed brow, every delayed text message, and every perceived slight as evidence. It will literally blind you to the person holding the door open or the stranger offering a polite nod. Julian moved into a small cottage on the north side of town, and within a week, his reality began to harden around him. He went to the local hardware store to buy tools for his renovation. The clerk, a young man named Toby, was having a difficult morning because his child was sick. Toby was slightly distracted and forgot to bag one of Julian's items. Julian didn't see a tired father. He saw a lazy, incompetent local trying to swindle a newcomer. He snapped at the boy, his voice dripping with condescension. Toby, feeling attacked, bristled and became defensive. He stopped being helpful and gave Julian the cold, professional minimum. As Julian walked out, he muttered to himself about how the people here were just as useless as back home. He had provoked the very behavior he feared, and then used that behavior to prove he was right. This is the tragic loop of the cynical mind. We broadcast suspicion, which creates discomfort in others, which leads them to withdraw or react with hostility, which we then claim is proof of their bad character. Meanwhile, Helena had moved into a small apartment above the bakery. On her first morning, the smell of yeast and cinnamon wafted through her floorboards. She went downstairs, not to demand service, but to introduce herself. She saw the baker, a woman with flour-dusted hair who looked exhausted from the 4 a.m. start. Elena didn't just buy a loaf of bread. She commented on the beautiful golden crust and asked the baker how she managed such a perfect rise. The baker's face transformed. She stayed an extra 5 minutes to explain her starter culture and ended up giving Elena a free bag of day-old rolls. Elena left the shop feeling like she had found a community of generous spirits. Was the baker a different person for Elena than she would have been for Julian? Absolutely. We are all multifaceted diamonds, showing different faces depending on the light that hits us. Elena brought the light of appreciation, so she saw the face of generosity. As weeks turned into months, Julian became a ghost in Oakhaven. He stopped attending town meetings because he felt the locals were cliqué. He stopped eating at the diner because he felt the waitresses were gossiping about him. In reality, the townspeople were initially curious about the architect, but his glowering presence and sharp tongue had made them wary. They weren't being mean. They were being protective. But to Julian, this was a conspiracy of silence. He sat in his perfectly designed, cold cottage, scrolling through news feeds that confirmed his bias that the world was ending. His blood pressure rose, his sleep suffered, and his creativity withered. He was living in a prison where the bars were made of his own assumptions. He was right about one thing. The world he lived in was miserable, but he failed to realize that he was the one who had decorated the cell. Elena, on the other hand, was becoming the heartbeat of her street. She had volunteered to help at the local library, and through that, she met the gardener, the mechanic, and the retired judge. Because she assumed people were inherently helpful, she wasn't afraid to ask for directions or a hand moving a heavy sofa.